Hey guys, what is up? It is Philbo, and we're going to talk a little bit about the pulverized rune. I got the pulverized rune on my first rare synth, my first rare link rune synth about a week ago, and I've been using it, so I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on it. So let's jump right in. We are going to look at the rune. I'm going to explain what it does, and then we'll compare it to element damage amplification rune, because they are a little bit similar in the damage output. So let's go ahead and look at pulverize. So we're in the blue link rune section. Pulverize is at the bottom here. And the first thing to notice is that it is a rare synthesis rune. So the way you acquire this is through rare synthesis. At the alchemy table, 20% resource cost increase, pretty standard. That's same with element damage amplification. And then the way it works is whenever you have a non-critical hit, you gain pulverize, right? So it's a buff that you get. You gain pulverize on a non-critical hit. It lasts 4 seconds. It stacks up to 5 times. And it gives you strike damage amplification per stack. Now, here's the thing that you got to know, and the reason why it's a non-crit, it's a rune for a non-crit build, is because you lose the buff whenever you have a critical hit. So this will not work in a critical hit build. It's for a non-crit build, okay? So 3.6% at level 1. We're going to talk a little bit about what it looks like at level 30 in just a second here. But before we do, if you do move up to legendary on this, you do get a 20% pulverize effect. So this works out to, at level 30, about an extra 6% strike amplification, which is pretty good. That's a lot of damage for moving up to a legendary rune. So let's go ahead and look at it. I have a level 28 pulverized, but I've put it on this double candered slot right here to get it to level 30 so we can see how much damage it does. At level 30, pulverize is going to do 6.5% strike damage amplification per stack. So you do the math, that comes out to 32.5% amplification, which is quite large. That's more than the persistence rune. So the persistence rune, this is level 29, but it's 26.9%. And it's actually higher than the element damage amplification rune. So if you look at this, also level 30, we're looking at 26% damage amplification. You do get 20% element damage, but that's nowhere near as much as, the extra 6.5% amplification that you get from pulverize. All right. So just wanted to kind of compare and contrast pulverize versus element damage amplification, because as I said earlier, they are similar in the damage output. But let's go ahead and I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts on pulverize. And you're probably thinking, well, the stacks can fall off, right? So let's go ahead and just address that real quick. You have 4 seconds for the stacks to fall off. So whenever you jump into battle, your cast speed or your attack speed at this point should be quite quick. You're going to be getting lots of attacks in very quickly, and the 5 stacks build up almost immediately. Anytime I jump into mapping, it's almost immediately full, and I can tell you that it never falls off. Like, I'll be going through a map, and 4 seconds, you usually don't have 4 seconds in between one pack of mobs and another. So it almost never falls off. I think the only time it really falls off for me is if I have to vendor something with my pet. Like my inventory is full and I got to disassemble some stuff. That's about the only time it falls off. Same thing with boss fights. I don't really ever notice it falling off in boss fights. Okay. So that's that. The other thing that I think you need to know is that we talked about how it's a buff earlier, right? So if I were to start casting, you'll see pulverize stacking up right here. So it's stacking up as a buff. So the initial thought that I had was, sweet, it's a buff. It buffs up strike amplification, or it amplifies strike damage. Perfect. I'll throw it onto my activated spell, get the buff, and it will amplify my damage for both of my spells. It doesn't work like that. It only amplifies the damage of the spell that it's linked to, even though it shows up as a buff. I tested this out. I tried it on charge release, and it did not buff the damage of lightning chain whatsoever. So that's why I'm using it on my primary ability. So that has to be known. It's you could imagine that if this buffed strike damage by as much as it does, and you could get the buff from your activated spell, that might be a little bit busted. So it's just on the spell that it's linked to. So that has to be known. And then my final thought on it is, yes, it is great for non-crit build. I'm happy. I'm very thankful I lucked out and got it in rare synthesis. However, if I were at the point where I'm going to get my pity, rare synthesis link rune, and I had to choose between something like that and Mana Storm, I think I would probably go with Mana Storm, because Mana Storm can still be used in crit builds. Pulverize is only for a non-crit build, so unless they start coming out with a bunch of other ways to buff non-crit builds, I'm assuming everybody's going to, eventually move over to a crit build, and that will make Pulverize not so great. You can't use it in a crit build. So I would have most likely I would have most likely chosen Mana Storm if I had the choice between the two, simply for that one reason. However, it is a massive damage boost to a non-crit build. So we talked about how it does, a lot more damage amplification than even element damage amplification, Link Rune. I myself noticed quite a large increase in damage when I went and I replaced, I think I replaced lightning damage. I had lightning damage on my lightning chain, and I replaced it with Pulverize. And at the time, I think I was doing about 2.5 million DPS single target, and it jumped me up like 200,000 DPS. So it was a pretty big DPS increase. So I'm happy I got it. And I think at this point for the build, it's probably like, I love the rune. It's great. It does what it does. So if you're considering getting it, I think you need to know all of that. If there's anything that I missed about the rune, feel free to drop a question in the comments section. But thanks so much for watching the video. If it's helped you out, I would appreciate it if you hit the like button and if you drop the subscribe. But until next time, you guys take care.